PodCast.
Welcome to the Piece of Music Podcast. I'm your host, Pete Ellis, and today I've got an old friend. He's someone I went to high school with, and things split apart. People move around and everything, but I saw he was doing some cool stuff, so I reached out, and here we are. Please welcome Patrick Fellers. How's it going, man?
What's up, man? Not too bad. I just finished the first book, but it ended up being so long that I started on the second book almost right after I sent it to the publisher. So, but it is one of those things that I've just wanted to do for a long time, and kind of mark off the whole bucket list thing, you know.
Yeah, man. First of all, I meant to get into this before we even started. I apologize. As a friend, I should have reached out to you after your accident, man, and I'm sorry I didn't. I'm glad you're doing well, and I'm glad that you're writing and following your passion, man. It's good to see.
You too, man. I see you got a nice studio there and everything. Boy, I've come a long way since the last time I saw you working on PeaceSum.
It sure has, man. It sure has. You know, you put in the work, man. Got to put in the work.
You ain't kidding. Yeah, I know that was your passion for a long time, just creating music and doing your thing, boy. I'm glad you made it, for sure. And don't worry about the accident thing. That ain't no big deal. Like you said just a bit ago, people move away. We, get kind of disconnected for a time, but what really matters is the ones that you can connect with right away when you reconnect. It's like some people you can do that with, and just seems like no time passes, even though it could have been years or months.
I feel like that's happened with us several times over the years. You know, like we'll go a few years a stretch, but then we'll come back and it's like, man, like this dude's cool. I forgot how good it is to hang out with this dude. So anyway,
I try.
You wrote. I just picked up your book yesterday. I didn't obviously have a chance to get it yet or read it yet. But tell me about it, man.
Well, it's on pre-order right now. They are finishing up with all the editing and all that. So once that's finished, and it'll be put on print, whoever pre-orders will get their copy after that. But the editing takes a little bit. They sent over the first draft a little while ago, and then you kind of go back and forth with it. They make some corrections, whether it be grammar or flow, readability, that kind of thing, and then send it back. If they like it on the second round, then it should be good. But this on the second round, it should be all right. They liked the first draft, and there wasn't really all that many corrections to be made, to tell you the truth. So it should be done pretty quick.
You were pretty thorough and used your degree basically to get it as tight as possible.
Yeah, I would have. When I finished my English degree, I would have started on it right away, and I kind of did. But then my university suckered me into going after a second degree, so it got kind of put on the back burner for a long time. But yeah, I used a lot. Since my second degree was in teaching and learning with technology, I was able to utilize a lot of different, technological feats to put into the book as well as in creating the book itself. I learned a lot, man. Just like this Skype thing, I've used all sorts of these, man. Video chats for school or whatever, School definitely plays a part in it, but you just really gotta start writing. You don't have to be the greatest linguistics guy there is to write a book. Once the editing, if they like your story, the editing team will help out with all the minor bullshit,
Yeah, I had a dream a couple years back, and I started writing a book based on the dream I had, and it's almost done, but it's still got some things to wrap up everything. But it's amazing how the inspiration will come sometimes. You'll just, from a dream or just a thought, a little spark, and then all of a sudden you're off to the races.
Yeah.
How do you gain? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, in your case, I would write a book, especially a biography, because your path, from what I know we've been out of touch for the past few years, but your path from high school and forward has been a hell of an interesting one, man, and inspirational a lot. You've had a lot of, especially with your eyes and everything, you've had a lot of ups and downs having to go forward with your passion with music, man. And I think people, they like hearing about stuff like that. It's something that helps maybe the new generation kind of want to take that trip into the arts, really.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I sometimes I've thought of I've dabbled in that thought, and every time I do, I'm like, oh, that's a selfish endeavor, or that's nobody wants to hear that. You know what I mean? Like, so that's not something that I've ever really considered strongly, but I appreciate that. But the dream that I had was it's more of like a science fiction, so it's totally outside the realm of anything that I have ever done. And it's amazing how just a spark of creativity will pull you in a whole nother direction.
Yeah.
How did you get inspiration for this book you wrote?
Well, as you know, when Valerie first passed, I was kind of in a dark spot anyway, and I read a lot, man. It was kind of my escape from reality, if you will. Feeding my brain with stories of other people's adventures or fictional people's adventures. It kind of took me out of the grim mood that I was in, or the grim life that I was living. And well, that's kind of what spurred me on. I've always been an avid reader, and I wanted to create a story that other people could find that same escape, in their lives, whether it just be for entertainment or whatever. But from my own experience, it was really just, it was nice to have, say Peter F. Hamilton or Garen Whitehead or any of the best-selling authors out there to drift away into their book and not have to think about all the crazy shit that goes on in our lives, especially with this COVID-19 thing. It's nice to kind of take your mind away from all the drama that's happening, especially with y'all up in Illinois there. Shit, they got you on lockdown, like, for sure. And it sucks. You know what I mean? Like, it makes your everyday life just kind of like you're caught in like a black hole, really, just spinning and spinning and spinning. When the fuck is it going to end? So stories help with.
They want to do stuff, but no one knows really what to do, or how, it's like, what direction do I go? Because it's like, if I get started in all of this over here, then we may go back to work in 2 weeks, but then it's like, oh well, maybe we don't ever go back to work this year. Who knows? It's just a crazy time. It's so wild, man. So wild.
It's also a good time for entertainers, whether it be an author or a musician like yourself, because people are actually inside, and it gives you time to create new material for whatever you're doing, and then they can listen while reading a book, whatever. But in certain industries, they're going to be flourishing a bit, whereas other industries it's going to be like a straight downfall.
Mm-hmm. Like clubs and bars and all that kind of stuff, man. It's just like all the people that work at those type of places. And then even all the way up to like the big venues and stuff. Like, how long before we get into like concerts and comedy specials and stuff like that again,
Shit, I'd just be happy to go to a bar and just have some drinks, bro. I hate sitting inside all the time, man. I'm not an inside guy.
Yeah. I'm okay with being inside because of my path of like having, never had a license because of my vision and all of these things. I've kind of become a homebody just naturally, and then I, from building my own studio in the house, like there's almost no reason for me to go outside. You know what I mean? So like, this has been almost a retreat back into what I love to do anyway. I've been just wrapping up all kinds of different projects, but at the same end, you're also not making money nearly as much, if anything. And all the places that you love are like going out of business too. And so it's not just about me. Like, I'm like relatively okay, although I'm very stir crazy and running very low on cash. like I'm not starving to death right now. You know what I mean? Where I imagine, 60% of America before this didn't have $500 in the bank. What are they doing?
Right.
And that $1,200 doesn't go very far. So
That's very true. And it's been, a month now that came out. People are already dried up from that, I guarantee it.
absolutely. They were probably dried up from previous owing, you know what I mean? Like from being behind already.
Yeah.
Because it was 2 months before that even came out.
Right. You got credit card bills that are piling up and everything. A lot of them probably had to just spend it all on that rather than getting something that they, wanted to get, a new iPhone.
Yeah. So this is the first. Is it a series? Are you putting a part two? Is this the second book a whole different theme topic?
No. It's a series. The main story arc will be a trilogy, but the characters themselves, it's going to be a full-on series. There'll be many main story arcs, if you will, because within even the first book, I left a lot of Easter eggs, subplots, and so on to go into further books, and not just the trilogy. Some of the information included in the trilogy itself will be leading to a whole nother, set of problems for the heroes that are involved. I got he's like a Cherokee shapeshifter, but he's also half elf, and then there's 2 worlds that are involved, and some of the future books will be taking place more on one world or the other, with say Earth being only a secondary place, whereas most of the books are taking place most of the stories taking place in the Fey world. But with science fiction, man, or fantasy, I'm kind of a cross-genre thing. You can do anything. So there's no real reason to stop the story if people like it. If they like the characters, if they want to continue, say one character is more popular than the other, and I have 3 protagonists. So maybe somebody takes up my female character and they like her. I can write a whole book on just her experiences, and have the other 2 as just, kind of background minor protagonists, if you will. But I can write a whole book from her perspective and do it like that. Or the others, brought several. That's kind of why I chose that particular genre to write in, is because literally anything that your imagination can come up with is possible. And that's what I like.
All right.
What's that?
Freedom.
Yeah, freedom. Yeah, and luckily I am crazy enough to have a good imagination.
That's good. So when did you actually start writing this book? Right.
I started this 7 months ago. I think September of 2019 is when the first chapter was finally finished, was in September, if I remember right. And then, of course, I had school that I was trying to finish up and all that. So it really kind of put on the back burner. But when I fell off a ladder at work and I broke my damn femur, and this happened right before the whole COVID thing, I was basically sidelined. So I was able to just sit there and focus almost solely on the thing. And when I did that, I was able to get it done in just a few months, finishing it up. But I didn't have anything to do, and my work, they didn't have any work because of the virus. So even if I had been healthy, I'd have been laid off anyway. So it's like, well, what are you going to do? And this was nice because, you get royalty checks every 6 months, and it'll be a nice supplementary income just in case, I have to find myself a new job, which is a definite possibility. I worked for a small business guy in Bradenton, and, well, he's not doing so well. So his business may not survive. I'm not
That's
going to
what
mention him all.
how many of these places are going to be like that? There's too many of them. It's like I get that it's for safety we need to shut down, but it's a hard one because it's like the flu kills people every day. We don't shut down for the regular flu, you know what I mean? And so like how much of how many other lives are we going to ruin with the possibility of this thing? When it may not be as bad as it even was thought out to be. You know, I mean, it may be worse. Maybe with the things we've been doing, we've been keeping it under wraps, but it's a weird one. It's such a back and forth. I get tugged back and forth because I don't want anyone that I know or their loved ones or any of that stuff to die from this. At the same time, how many businesses are just tanking?
All sorts, man. Because how does a small business survive when you're out of work for months and months? Because the bills never stop. Just because your business ain't opening doesn't mean that, you know, whoever you're leasing your building from isn't still charging you to fucking lease it, you know. But, you know, like everything, we're American, man. We find a way through. Might take us a little while to recover from it or whatever, but we'll get back on track. I'm sure of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've had a kind of crazy story yourself. You were talking about autobiographies. So before you moved out there, you were doing underwater welding?
I was gonna go for underwater welding, yes, and I was a welder down here when
Sorry, go ahead.
you broke up a little bit there, but
I said I just remember you talking about being under there and talking about the bends and all that kind of stuff. About if you go up too fast, and you know, I thought that was an interesting job. I thought you were actually working in that. You were just training for that, though.
I was gonna go to school down here for it. There's a big underwater welding school in Jacksonville, and I got in a motorcycle accident and fractured my skull. And it took the underwater welding thing off the plate because with that I can't be down, you know, 50, 100 feet or whatever because it's all protected with a titanium plate now.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, but it was all right, man. I had other goals that I wanted to anyway, which is why I went back to school for English and education as well, because you know, I mean, underwater welding was a passion, yeah, and it's a good money maker, but like right now, I'd be SOL as far as work goes because there's not a lot of that going on. But that was more of a practical mindset anyway, doing the underwater welding, kind of adventurous, but more practical. Whereas my English degree and the education is more of a passion type of deal.
Nice. So let's talk about the motorcycle accident. What happened there? If you don't mind.
I don't mind. I was actually up in Hudson, Florida, and this white SUV cut me off, and the last thing I remember for like weeks, because I was well and truly out, was when this dude, he flew by me and he came over to the left and then slammed on his brakes right in front of me, and my last conscious thought was put it down in the grass so I didn't go splat on the back of his SUV. So I put it in the grass, but I took an 80-foot tumble, man, and somewhere along my roll, my head hit a pipe or a signpost or whatever, and fractured it on this side here 3 places. So there's 3 different fractures going all the way down the side. So they had to cut a big old horseshoe off and then put a plate in there and put me back together. Humpty Dumpty had well and truly fallen apart.
Holy cow! So no helmet. No.
I did. Helmet. I wear a helmet all the time now, but no, it was kind of a situational thing if I wore a helmet before. And really, I was just chill riding, dude. I had a big old cruiser, and I wasn't speeding or anything. I had just gone to an interview, got the job, and was kind of doing like a victory cruise, you know. And then this dude nailed me, and that was it for about a month. You know, I was in ICU for a few weeks, and then I was moved to the trauma unit, and well, eventually I came out of it. But luckily, I'm not brain dead or anything.
All these other people, that's like the biggest issue with that is like other people. You can't. It's like you could be great. You can ride your motorcycle phenomenally, and then some other fucking asshole comes along and fucks everything up.
Yeah, but that's the same with anything. You could be driving a car and that could happen. You could be walking across the street.
Momentum, and they're, you're much less likely to get, thrown 80 feet.
Well,
I mean, I would love to have a motorcycle. Like, I'm not advocating against motorcycles by any means. I just mean it just sucks that people don't pay attention, and they're always me first, and they're gonna whip around you. It's just
somehow
like
the events that happened, man. A part of me almost felt like it had to be intentional for some reason. Maybe they just didn't like motorcyclists or whatever, because there was really, from what I remember, there was really just nobody on the road. You know what I mean? And he just boom, and next thing anybody knows, I'm being scraped up off the highway.
So did he get caught, or did that person get caught, or they stop? Or
no, they didn't stop at all. Actually, it was and mind you, this is all third-party stuff that I'm getting. It was actually a pedestrian that called in the fire department, and a lot of things were going right, in my favor, because there was a fire department literally like 3/4 of a mile down the street, and some dude on the side of the road called it in. They got to me right away and got me to the hospital up in Hudson. I was dying, dude. Like, I was, if they hadn't been that quick, I probably would not be here today. But luckily for me, that pedestrian dude would happen to be walking down the road, saw the whole thing, called it in. We didn't get the license plate or whatever, but that dude, he took off. Never heard from that cat again. But the fire department there, Lindsay and I, we brought 2 big things of Moscacholi for the fire department guys once I was able to, not be homebound from it. And they enjoyed it, man. I got all the respect in the world for them cats and scraping my bloody ass off the highway, But I was happy because, even though I got some new battle wounds, I was able to get back on the motorcycle, which I love riding, dude. And this broken femur just kills me because I haven't been able to ride for a couple months now because of this femur thing. But I can't wait to get back on the bike then.
Nice. So what is the direction you're going with this book? You've got a publisher. How did that happen?
I sought out a lot of different publishers. Some of them cost an extraordinary amount of money, to just publish a book, and then others were traditional publishers that you basically sign a contract and they pay for everything, but your royalties take a major hit. And then there's, of course, you could self-publish, which my publisher that I found is actually a local one, and they kind of take care of all the self-publishing things themselves, but it's not like you're paying $3,000 or whatever. You give them a fee, and then you share the royalties from it, of course, just like a traditional publisher. So they're kind of a hybrid in a way. And I opted for the hometown team simply because I didn't like the salesman mentality that I was getting from a lot of the larger ones. I hate to say their name on a podcast, but you've seen. I'm sure everybody has seen the various publishers on advertisements and whatever, and it just wasn't for me, man. The people that I talked to, it was like going to buy a car. You have all these damn fleas that are trying to get you to get this car or get that car. Hey, this is awesome, that kind of thing. And I didn't like it, so I started researching the local ones. I called a few. Now they wanted a completed manuscript and whatever, and that's fine. And I was willing to do that, and I did. I sent them into a few ones, but my publisher, Esquire Publications, they called me back almost right away after they, well, it was like a day later. They read only a partial manuscript. I didn't even send them the whole thing. And they were willing to work with me on it. And so here I am. I know they don't have as big of a team as some of your larger ones, but honestly, this is kind of just a hobby to begin with. So I figured, at least for my first book, I can go with the hometown guy. If they do well by me, then I continue using them. If not, then I can always grab another publisher because my contract's only for a year. After that year is up, I don't have to keep them as a continuation for publishing that story.
Okay. I can there's also no clause of like a second book option or any of that kind of thing. It's just like 1 year for what you put in, and then if you want to continue, you sign another one.
No, there's no clause for that. No. And some publishers do that, but I think for a lot of for new authors, I don't think publishers really want to go with the multi-book contracts for time.
Right.
Right. They got to see if you're going to do good. Now, if your first book does good, then they might sign you on for, say, a 4 or 5 book contract, something like that. But the good thing with Esquire is that I keep all the rights to my book. They don't keep. A lot of traditional publishers, you basically sign the rights over to your book, and though you keep writing for them book after book, they hold all the rights to the story itself. So it's not like you can pick up and go somewhere else with your story. That's just, you'd have to come up with a completely new one for another publisher.
With music and with entertainment, TV, and all of that too. Like once you get these companies that buy out the rights to the work, it's like, say you have a TV, like for instance, like we'll just say like WWF, right? Like Hulk Hogan is a name of WWF. He can't just go, or WWE, whatever it is now. He can't just go be Hulk Hogan and not be affiliated. You know what I mean? Or we'll say someone like the Ultimate Warrior was, right? Like, because Hulk Hogan's an actual person, kind of, but like the persona is owned by these companies, and so you can't just, like, if your book was owned by that company, then you can't just write however you want without their permission. It's the same thing with like some of the music. Like when you sign with, like, for instance, with the last album I did with Spike Rebel, like he owns like 30% of that publishing. So like if I want to go make more copies, like I have to keep that in mind in the bottom line. Like he's getting 30% of this, and all the way around, not just publishing. So like it's just you have to be very conscious when you're signing these deals, because it's very easy to give away all of your fucking rights and royalties and everything else,
Exactly. Now, like The Rock or whatever, he bought back his moniker, the Rock.
Yeah.
If in your contract, it could have little subtext like that you can buy back your own name, if you want to keep it. Like your book or anything in the entertainment business, if you want to divvy up the cash and take all your rights back, sometimes in the contract it'll allow you to do that, but you have to pay the price for it. Unfortunately,
they will write that in because they're not the publisher's not going to give you that option.
Some do.
Right. You think they will? Not unless you ask for it.
I know of a few, like say Stephen King, for instance. He basically publishes his own books at this point. The publishing company is something that he owns. And all his older books, he actually has all of them. So he was able to buy the rights for books that were published from, other publishers when he first started.
Yeah.
So yeah, will allow you to do that. I'm not saying all of them will, but some will allow that. Yeah.
Yeah, money talks too. You know, when you have that kind of money, I'm sure you can pay people. Um, I just mean like in early negotiations of contracts, like for people like you and me, if we were going into negotiations, they probably don't offer that. You know what I mean? Like you would have to have a good lawyer or know about that good uh, into your contract negotiations with these people to have that in. They're probably not going to be like, oh, by the way, if you ever want to just buy it back, like we'll give you that option. It might be in some people's like your small town, you might have that in your option, but I think a lot of the big ones, they're not even going to include that. Like when I started PeaceSum, I didn't realize right away. Like I thought I read through everything, and then like about a year later, I went reading through again all my articles of incorporation, and I started through LegalZoom, and they put a clause in there that at any time they can just take my company. And I was like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how can they just slide this stuff in? You know what I mean? Like, and you got to be careful when you start with that stuff, because contracts, they can do it. You know, they can say one thing and then slide something else under the table in your contract if you're not careful. And that's what's scary about all of these like terms and agreements we have with all these companies. It's like, how binding is this stuff really? You know what I mean? Like how many people read the agreement? How many people read the agreement to Facebook and Instagram and these type of sites? You know what I mean? Like fully read and understood.
I would have to say 99% of them don't. Hell, even I'm guilty of it. You know, you're using Facebook or whatever, and you're just like, yeah, screw it. You know, but it's pretty binding though. I've read a couple, and they get real in depth, man, with what they expect from users and all that. And then, you know, some of the stuff that you find out on the news, people post things that get torn down, and then they bitch about it. But all that is actually in the agreement that you're basically doing your electronic signature on. It's true. It really is. And you can go through and you can look, and it might be in the small print, but some bitch is still there, dude. And you have no legal, standing to sue them or anything like that, which is why a lot of that just kind of disappears. You never hear from it again, is because there is no legal standing. So you can complain.
Yeah. You can bitch about it, but at the end of the day, there's nothing you can really do about it. The only thing that you can do is by complaining, you can maybe bring awareness to other people about it. And there can be like what I've seen in Facebook over the last few years is kind of a mass exodus. There's a lot of people who've been like, I've had it, and they leave. You know what I mean? And so that's really the only thing, the only power you do have over these companies is to not use them.
Which there's so many people that use Facebook. It's
not really a power. It's only exercising your own individual power and right. You know what I mean? Like it's not really going to affect them on a mass scale unless it's a huge grassroots movement that turns into nobody wants to use them, which is possible. Like everyone thinks that Facebook or like this is on the top, but like look at MySpace. Like at one time that was on the top, right? So what's going to be next? There's going to be a next, you know?
Right.
So
that's true. I think Facebook has gone leaps and bounds beyond MySpace. It would have to truly be a mass exodus out of Facebook to get it to stop. And but I think a lot of people would just leave because they're sick of all the bullshit that gets put up on there. You have, politicians, celebrities, whatever, posting all this, jargon or propaganda up there, and some people just don't want to see all that all the time. I don't want to see a bunch of political crap on the news. What was that?
I said it gets shoved down our throats over and over. Like
right.
You see more of that than you do of your friends' posts sometimes.
Which is why I don't believe that celebrities are one thing, but I don't think politicians should be allowed on social media, period. I don't give a fuck which one it is. They all need to be taken off of social media. They just use it to gain power in whatever way they can, which is bullshit. Facebook started off as something for college kids just to kind of intermingle and share ideas and all that. And now you got all this nonsense that goes on. I got my privacy settings, dude, are maxed. Like, I don't want all that crap on I got friends like you and others, and we post. I like the freedom to be able to post, crude humor or whatever we want to without having to worry about somebody shutting us down, And I think when you're on the social media, I don't think they should be able to take a post that you put up, especially if you're just trying to be a smart ass or humorous. Some of it, yeah, like you don't want terrorists on there and all that. But if you're just BSing with your friends, dude, that shit ain't cool. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to be necessarily politically correct when you're just having fun with your people.
Yeah, the problem comes when people come from the outside and don't understand your humor or your sarcasm, and they think you're serious about it, right? And it's sometimes an easy. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said you make a good point. I mean, if you don't like it, just get the fuck off the page, though. You don't have to report people.
Absolutely. Well, and that's why I think like the privacy settings help a little bit. If the outside world isn't able to just see all of this, the outside world that's not already connected to you. Like the people that are connected to you kind of know you, so they're not going to report you usually. Like they shouldn't, because they shouldn't be following you, right? Like, but it's like public. You get some random person who comes and like, oh, this triggers me, and then they, So,
well,
the privacy.
It's just like. Go ahead. Sorry.
I just said the privacy helps.
Yeah, but people have to also understand the privacy thing too. Because what was it, a few years ago, that teacher got nailed for saying something about the students, and then she was complaining that because the school picked up on it, she got fired, of course, because you don't need to be saying that kind of shit. But she didn't check her privacy settings, so it went public instead of keeping it on her own newsfeed. You can have your own opinions on your newsfeed, but man, you got to make sure your privacy settings are up there, or you get fired. And companies, man, they look at your Facebook feed, dude. Don't get it twisted.
Absolutely, and it's only getting more and more invasive. Because like I've heard recently that if you put your credit card information on your phone, and you have Facebook on the app, it'll save it in Facebook's app. Like you don't even have to put it in there, I don't think, anymore. Like it just saves it automatically, like how your browser used to do, like, or does. So it's weird how many times you always have to go back into these settings and recheck them and make sure there's not something new that's automatically turned on that you don't want.
Right. And now Facebook doesn't just grab your credit card information. Like I had for the ads I put on for my books page, for my author page for the book, I actually had to put in the card and everything directly into Facebook. Now they still have it, of course, but they couldn't just grab that off my phone. It doesn't really work.
So that's one of those interesting things about the hearsay of the world. There's so much of that fake false information that you hear things and then it's like, that must be true. What I mean? It's it's that confirmation bias of like, I believe they're being like that, so I wouldn't doubt it.
Dude, there's all sorts of fake news out there, man. If people even researched half the crap that they found just floating around there, they'd realize it wasn't true. Probably more than half, probably 75% of it's bullshit. Yeah. But nobody wanted.
You could just say whatever the fuck you wanted. Before the internet, you could just be like, "Oh, the sky is purple," and people will be like, "I don't think so, but I have no way to confirm that." Like,
right.
Now they Google it and they're like, "No, it's definitely blue."
That is so true, man. The gullibility is ridiculous, and a lot of times to disprove something, all it takes is a little research. But sometimes, with all this fake crap that goes on, they put just enough truth in there to make it believable, which that's what gets people. But a lot of, like I said, you do your research, man. Don't just take some article and take it for granted that, oh, this is biblical truth, because it's not. A lot of it's biased. A lot of it's very one-sided. You're not getting both sides of the story. I get so sick of it. I started researching almost every single article that I ever pick up, and I found all sorts of non-truths that were in it. It's perfect.
It's too much work to have to redo the research of your reporters. It's their job to do the research and report the facts, and they're not doing that. They're just doing the clickbait stuff. And so it's like now you have to be the reporter and go do the digging that they should have done.
Because some of the reporters have been bought out anyway, man. So they're going to have a lot of bias going on in any of the reports, which is not what journalism is supposed to be about. You know, you're supposed to research and find the facts and then deliver your report, not just kind of skim over the top and then let it all spew out of your mouth however which way you want, or give your particular views on it. But such is the world we live, man.
So, I mean, that we're not gonna be able to change much of that. It's just an observation more than anything, right? Like, this is just the way we see it. But, you know, hopefully a lot of that stuff, because so many people are tired of it, hopefully it'll kind of go to the wayside. Maybe it's kind of like once the veil is lifted and people are like, oh, that's bullshit. Like, the bullshit kind of has to get swept away because, you know, hopefully. But we'll see.
Right. And for all your viewers, everything that I say here is all just my opinion. Nobody should be taking anything that I say for granted because I am an asshole. So.
And I'm an idiot. So, I mean, like, don't listen to me either. So, anyway, what do you want to tell people about the book?
Well, I mean, you can really go on my Facebook page for it, and it's just P. Fellers, author of, Winter Wolf Arises, and they can see a lot of the information, what the book is about. But anyway, it follows three main protagonists, and it's done in a first-person perspective. So each chapter has a different character. So you have, Byron, you have Amabel, and you have Enola, which are the three. And it all kind of goes there. I mean, there's a bit of a time dilation thing going on where they overlap because it's written in a sort of journal entry format. So you have these three characters, which are all on, when the book first begins, one's in a completely separate world, and then two are on completely different sides of the planet. So you have a little bit of the time lapse going on there, but it goes in a linear fashion for the most part, and you get the whole story from three different angles. And I wanted to do it like that because I think it's nicer for some readers if they're walking in the shoes of the character, rather than from a third person where you're taking a bird's eye view. This gives you the whole picture, but you get to walk into individual footsteps. So it's, in a way, a lot of first-person books, you're only getting the perspective of a single character for the whole story. So you're not getting a full view of what's going on. Whereas in this case, you're getting it from all the different angles, and it gives you a better perspective of the story and as a whole. The book itself, though, their main goal for the book is helping Earth, which at this point in time, North Korea has released their nukes, and it was kind of a global nuclear warfare, wiped out 3/4 of the population, and you have a lot of radioactive areas on Earth itself, and because of the lower population, you have a lot of people reclaiming the beliefs in various magical creatures, vampires, werewolves, different fae folk, so on and so forth. And because of that belief, a lot of these creatures are starting to become more open about their position in the world, rather than hiding in the shadows and doing that. So the world not only is a danger because you have a very devastated landscape, you have a lot of these supernatural creatures that some of them feed pretty regularly on humans. And so the first book, now a lot of this is going to take place throughout the trilogy, fixing what's been broken, if you will. The first book is more about trying to calm the spirit of the earth, Gaia or Mother Earth or whatever you want. But in the story, the earth is portrayed as more of a living creature, which is very upset because of how we treated her. You know, with the nukes, the pollution, all that. So she's doing her best to wipe out as many humans as she can because she's pissed off. But and then you have some elves that are more malicious than others, of course. But you have some that are using magical means to clean up a lot of the radiation that is on the planet in order to soothe the Earth Mother from her pain, as it were. So they travel from place to place trying to figure out what is going on and why the Earth Mother is still so angry. And, there's many different locations. There's Ireland, you have Colorado, Hawaii. Evicten's land or the land of eternity is where the Fae are. And a lot of the reflection chapters take place solely in the land of eternity. And over there, you meet a lot of different creatures, various types of Fae. You have elves, nymphs, gnomes, trolls, pixies, whatever. I did. You would not believe how much research it takes to find out all the different information on Fae lore, dude. And I guess that was one of the most trying things, was to really research what I was. Now, the land of eternity is all my creation. The landscape, everything, it's all mine. But the Fae that are in there are actual, like, mythological Fae. Like, I had to research each and every one of them to find out what exactly they did, what their purpose was in the whole scheme of things.
So
and
it's got a little bit of truth, a little bit of imaginative creation, but it kind of it brings kind of what our folklore already is with kind of what could be.
So here's the thing: when you create a whole world like that, and there's truth and fiction in it, but you have to create a society in a place like that people can understand. The reader will understand. If you make it too alien, people don't kind of understand the social order that's going on. So what I did was I researched all the different abilities or purposes of these different Fae, and I kind of gave them jobs in the land of eternities. So you have these dryad trees, which are typically homes for elves. And then you have water Fae, like water nymphs that help bring water into the tree for showers, so on and so forth. Trolls eat dead people. So, I don't want to get too far into it because I'll be explaining it forever. But
some to the readers to be able to figure out and stuff. Do you plan on making it an audio book at any time?
I'm up for anything. If somebody wants to pick up the story for audiobook format, right now I don't have the monetary means to do it myself, but a lot of the good selling books, Audible will offer contracts to or whatever to do that, so that you don't pay for it, but they'll release the book on Audible. You just get a percentage or whatever. I'm up for that, of course. Even years down the road, if somebody wanted to pick up the trilogy for, a Netflix series or whatever, what author wouldn't want their book represented on paper, audio, and video?
Yeah,
I think that's the dream of almost any artist. Even yourself. If an author came up to you and wanted to do a biography of your life, would you tell them no?
I would have to be somewhat involved so I knew the direction, but yeah, I would probably allow someone else to do it over myself doing it, probably.
Yeah, of course. I'm not saying the intricacies of contract and stuff like that, but if you want to sit down and listen to you tell your whole story while taking notes or whatever, I don't know how they do biographies nowadays. Maybe they just have a recorder. But if he came up to you and said, and hey, you'll get 5% or 10% of the royalties for the book and whatever, why would you say no? It's that kind of thing. So now you have PeaceSum, and now PeaceSum as well as your whole life is going to get represented inside of paper, you know. And now the next step is, how do I get it on video? Got the podcast, but maybe somebody picks up your biography and A&E wants to do a whole, you know, movie on Pat Dallas, you know. I wonder who they would have a character for you, boy.
Who's the actor?
Yeah, who would the actor be? Pat Dallas.
That's funny. Anyway, man, we're gonna wrap this up, man. I really appreciate you being on the podcast. It's been really great catching up with you, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, brother. Hey, give me a call anytime, man. It's been awesome to talk to you again, dude. You're one of the people, dude, that I just, man, it's hard not to like you, dude. Even as ugly as you are, it's hard not to like you. Thanks for on the.
What's that?
I said, thanks for having me on this, man. It's been awesome. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. This is the Piece of Music Podcast, episode 31 with Pete Fellers. Take it easy.
Peace.